and left Brooklyn to go to Hawaii, where he was stationed. Her marriage ended not long after she got there. You'd think that in such a place with such breadth and beauty, new love would bloom effortlessly as a rushing waterfall, but it didn't. Singh came back to Brooklyn to my grandmother's apartment on Sumter Street, heartbroken and pregnant. A baby boy was born prematurely months later and only lived a few days. She was too destroyed to attend the memorial service for him, and a mix-up caused him to be buried in Potter's Field. Pain settled deep in her sinews, and the only way she could get rid of it was through drinking. It was as if she had written her own obituary, pulled out her funeral dress, and was ready to be buried. So sad, my Aunt Louise would say, as I sat in her kitchen on Pulaski Street many years later after Singh had passed away. Grief was etched all over her face even then. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Vignettes of Singh's life flashed in front of me like an old movie camera, like it does now when I think of her. We were like two peas in a pod to both of us. Sometimes she was as giggly as a schoolgirl. Although I shouldn't have been, I became her confidant. As we sat in my grandmother's living room, she sitting in Mama's old beat-up flowered armchair, smoking a Camel cigarette, Tina Turner legs crossed at the ankle, I'd sit at her knee on the cold linoleum floor, hanging on to her every word. Sometimes on the weekend, when I saw her getting dressed, I'd almost do backflips to keep her home, knowing that she was headed to the local bar. One time I stood by the door and tried to block her, but she left as soon as I moved away to pick up my cat, the stray one we found on the street that we, acting like co-conspirators, convinced my grandmother to keep. My cat loved her just as much as she loved me, and Singh took good care of her too. My grandmother's apartment had a fire escape, and if I stood just so and stuck my head over its railing, I could see all the way down the block. The fire escape was time-worn and corroded from the weather. It would dangerously teeter if you put too much weight on it, and I was constantly being told to come back inside by my mother. In the summer, I would sit on the safest part of it to wait until the wee hours of the morning for Singh's return. Sometimes it would seem as if time stood still. Other times I'd get distracted by the young men shooting craps or singing doo-wop underneath me, and the time would go by faster. In the winter, I'd sit by the window, lifting it to just a crack so I could hear Singh's heels clicking down the empty, dark street. Once I heard her walk up the stairs, I would unlock my grandmother's double-bolted door. Everyone else would be asleep, and I'd take her hand and lead her to her bed. She always fell right asleep. I'd take off her shoes and cover her with one of my grandmother's quilts. I'd lay beside her and through the night inch closer to check to make sure she was breathing, not at all repelled by the putrid smell of alcohol on her breath.